Hi guys, this is Vysh from Vysh IAS, and we have completed the 10 chapters for Spectrum, and today is the 11th chapter. And also we'll take bit of portions from chapter 15. Why? Because both these chapters deals with the administrative changes during the British rule. So we know a lot of acts which we also see in polity in Lakshmikant. The first few pages are related to the Regulating Act 1773 to the India Independence Act 1947. So I have taken portions from Spectrum and Lakshmikant and then made this video. And chapter 15's part 2 we'll do it separately. It will have some of the information about the changes in civil services, police, judiciary and all those things under British administration. So that we'll do it when we do chapter 15 part 2. And also I would like you to please share these videos and tell about this page to your other aspirants as well, because this is the only channel I think which gives a detailed explanation of the Spectrum chapter by chapter in English language. So because we have seen isolated videos of Hindi here and there for Spectrum but not for English. So please share this video so that everyone takes benefit out of this series. So let's begin. So first one, Regulating Act 1773. First I will show you all the important acts in order, in sequence, then we will go one by one in detail. Bits in the Act 1784. Charter Act, then okay, after these two, 3 Charter Act will come, and it's easy to remember the years also, okay, because everything is of 20 years gap. Charter Act 1813, 1833 and 1853. Then we will have a Government of India Act 1858, where the Crown will directly take over the territories in India and East India Company will be abolished. So these are the initial acts. After the Government of India Act, we will have 3 Council Act, okay, 1861, 1892 and 1909, and this one is called the Morley-Minto reforms, which is very famous for the separate electorates for Muslims. Then after that we have Government of India Acts. It is 1919, that is the Montagu-Chelmsford reform, Government of India Act 1935, and then finally we have the India Independence Act 1947. So we have seen the entire history actually of this timeline 1770s to 1947 in our 10 chapters. Everything is covered in detail and it is explained with respect to prelims, mains as well as history optionals. So that will be the best source for you to learn for the first time and also for revising purpose, because all are small videos. Only one chapter, I think it was nearly 1 hour, because it was about socio-religious reforms, and that we had to do in detail because it's very important for prelims perspective. Now we'll see each thing one by one, and also I'll simply make you revise also a few things which happens between these years. Like you see there's a gap between 1784 and 1813. So when these gaps happen, I'll tell you if anything important happened in between them. So we'll see. First is Regulating Act 1773. First you need to know why did such acts started coming, because you know East India Company after the 1764, that is Battle of Buxar, they were like the supreme power in India. All the other European powers were also defeated, and now they got the Diwani rights from Shah Alam II, that is the Mughal ruler. We have done all this, but I am just telling you so that you get a picture clear. Then they started doing a lot of trade because they got the Diwani rights also. They collect revenue, they also engage in private trade, that is the English officers, other than what is going to the company for their personal profit, they used to engage in private trade also. The entire Indian economy started getting crumbled. The East India Company also went into losses, and then they also had to apply a big loan to the British government because they couldn't maintain their forces in India because of their illegal trade and other activities. So finally the British government had to intervene, and then they created this Regulating Act to regulate the East India Company. So the year is 1773, and the picture you see is of Warren Hastings. He was the one who was the governor of Bengal at that time. So the most important thing was he was made, or the position was changed from governor of Bengal to Governor General of Bengal. Okay, because till then it was Bengal, Madras and Bombay being of equal importance and equal provincial status. But after the Battle of Buxar and getting almost lot of rights near the Bengal, Bihar, Odisha region, Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal, and they were considered a little bit higher status than Bombay and Madras. So this was the first act for controlling or monitoring the affairs of East India Company by British government. Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal, and the first is Warren Hastings. Madras and Bombay Presidency now became subordinate to Bengal. The members of the company cannot engage in any private trade any longer. An executive council with 4 members was formed for assisting the Governor General. So this is the first time an executive council will be formed under the Governor General, that is under Warren Hastings. So 4 people are there in the executive council. A Supreme Court was established in 1774 with 1 Chief Justice and 3 judges. So it was the first time like Supreme Court was established. But later this significance of this body reduces, and later we will see in the 1935 Act a proper federal court will be established. So we will see that Court of Directors was required to report to the government on civil, military, revenue affairs. So till now East India Company was not at all regulated. So now what happened is a Governor General with an executive council and a Court of Directors. Court of Directors will be responsible for reporting each and everything, whether it be civil, military or revenue affairs, back to the British government. So that is all about regulating act, and even this one had certain defects. So to check that, an act called Settlement Act 1781 was there. You don't have to see any other detail, just remember like Regulating Act was not successful and Settlement Act 1781 had to be introduced. Then comes the Pitt India Act 1784. Another important thing you need to remember is during both these acts or all 3 acts, the Governor General was Warren Hastings only. He had a very long term. Okay, if you see 1773 until 1784, he is the same person who was the Governor General of Bengal. So you should remember this if it is asked in prelims. It distinguished between commercial and political functions of the company. So we will see like a kind of dual governance will come. Okay, because if you remember, the initial time when dual governance came was after 1764, when they introduced something called Deputy Diwan. Okay, but that will be done away by Warren Hastings, and instead the British government came up with the Pitt India Act 1784, where remember like we had a Court of Directors in the previous act. In this act what will happen is one more body will come called the Board of Control. Okay, so Board of Control, what will they do is they will have all the reporting rights or more control over the company, and Court of Directors, which was a failure for them, only the commercial activities, that is small trade kind of thing will be given to be in charge. So Court of Directors looks into commercial thing, and new body Board of Control will look the political affairs. So it's a dual governance of the company. Company's territories was for the first time called British possessions in India. So UPSC will pick these kind of statements only. Under which act was company's territories for the first time called British possessions in India? So you should know it is Pitt India Act 1784. British government for the first time gets supreme control over the company. Also there is a small act, Charter Act 1793, where the East India Company was asked to obey strictly all the instructions from the government. I am just mentioning it because after this we have to see three important Charter Acts, which is in the gap of 20 years, 1813, 1833 and 1853. So we have done with 2 important acts, Regulating Act and Pitt India Act, both under Warren Hastings. Now we will see the Charter Act. So Charter Act 1813, 1833, we will see this first. So it was Lord Minto, but you should remember like this is not the same Minto who will come in Morley Minto reforms, because that is in 1909, almost a century later. That is a different Minto, and this is a different Minto. Okay, so you should know that. So basically 4 types. This is the act in which the monopoly of East India Company was actually taken away. That is the most important point about Charter Act 1813. If you remember, East India Company in 1600 got the rights to trade at all regions to the east. Okay, in the eastern side. But what happened in the late 18th century is that industrial revolution began in England. So obviously lot of new traders and the artisans, everyone will rise up. So they'll ask like, why only a particular company is given rights? We also want to go and trade over there. So break that monopoly. Okay, so that is when they were given the rights, and the monopoly over only tea and China trade was left. That means only the East India Company can trade over tea plantations and the trade happening with China. Rest all the trade, whether it be cotton or indigo or whatever is happening, Rest all can be done equally by East India Company as well as the rising industrialist in the England, back in England. Okay, so that is called the coming of free traders. This was decided in Charter Act 1813. Then we have different classes of people because now British has strong hold in Indian territories. So these are a few categories of people: utilitarian, liberals, and evangelist. I remember by the first letters of all this: FULE, free traders, utilitarian, liberals, evangelists. FULE. Okay. So utilitarian is India should be ruled so that people are happy, and these are actually the people, the civilians of British side who comes to India and comes to settle in India. So they wanted a peaceful environment. That is the utilitarian. So this also migration happened after this act. Liberals are the people who told we should raise the standard of Indians because they considered Indians as barbaric, not civilized. Okay, if you remember, there were buildings outside which boards were kept like Indians and dogs are not allowed to enter. That much they humiliated Indians. So liberals wanted to raise the standard. So 1 lakh rupees, which was a huge amount at that time, was allocated for education. Then we have evangelists. Evangelists, Christian missionaries. They were allowed to come to India and spread Christianity because they considered Christianity to be the best religion for the world. They did not like Islam also, and they did not like the Hindu rituals and blind faith. So evangelist. So this is what is basically you need to know about Charter Act 1813. It is not mentioned in spectrum. We have taken additional information. Charter Act 1833. So here the Governor General of Bengal will become Governor General of India. Okay, so you have to remember these kind of things. Governor General of Bengal title was in Regulating Act 1773 and India is 1833. And the first one is William Bentinck, very important personality because around this time only Sati was abolished legally, and with the help of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, William Bentinck passed the law of Sati. That's an extra additional information we have already covered, just mentioning again. Madras and Bombay lost legislative powers. So now the law making powers was taken away. Madras and Bombay getting more and more weaker. Until now all the acts were generally mentioned as regulations because it was checking the company's activities. But going forward everything will be act because even in the modern India when laws are made we call it as act. We learn a lot of act, right? So acts are going to come in the coming years. EIC became only an administrative body and not commercial. So trade, everything is ended. No more trade for East India Company. Just administer the few possessions. That too in the name of the Majesty, the Queen or the Crown. And this is the act where open competition for selection of civil servants was first time attempted. Okay, we are preparing for civil services. We should know the history of civil services. So it was only attempted. It was not successful because it was opposed by the Court of Directors. Court of Directors, you should remember, the body which was controlling the East India Company or reporting about the East India Company in the 1773 Act. Okay, we will do about civil services for sure in the part 2 of chapter 15 later, but you should know this it was attempted in this particular act. Now 1853, see the timeline, it is Dalhousie. If you remember, this is the time when doctrine of lapse and all the important activities in India happened, like the development process like railways, telegraph, the stamps or letters, all these things happened during this time. So you should know 1853 time it was Dalhousie, and this is the time actually when civil services will be happening for the first time. We'll see details. Apart from Executive Council, a new Legislative Council was formed. Okay, we remember Executive Council was formed for the first time in 1773 under Warren Hastings. Now a new Legislative Council is formed. Okay, like the present day Indian Legislative Council it was called, and the members will be 6 members in Legislative Council, 4 appointed by provincial government. Okay, so 6 will be there and 4 will be appointed by provincial government. That is the 3 presidencies and Agra, Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra. Open competition for civil services. Indians also too can participate, and a committee was formed at that time, Macaulay Committee, formed in 1854. You have to remember these committees also because in 2017 prelims they asked Butler Committee was for what reason, was formed for what reason. The answer was center-state relations. We had covered it in our Facebook page. Those who had seen it would have done it in the 2017 prelims. Also we will have upload the table one more time. We have made a table actually with all the important committees during the British time. So Macaulay Committee is for civil services at that time. Territories in India extended under company rule but deadline not fixed, so can terminate. So 1853, if you see in the last act 1833, all trading rights were gone and East India Company were only an administrative body, but at least they were administrating certain territories for a certain time. Now in 1853 they told like there is no deadline. What does it mean? It means like It can end at any time. They can terminate the East India Company altogether. So that was about all the three Charter Act. Why I am teaching you like this is because you will see comparison, how it progressed. Okay, that is what the Britishers did. Always when they saw some problems within India, they will put small reforms just to appease the Indians. That we'll see later when even the Indian National Congress is formed in 1885. Okay. The next most important fact, which is the turning point, is the Government of India Act 1858. This is a poster of a movie, The Viceroy's House, which is there in Hindi language also. This movie shows the entire life or entire timeline when Mountbatten comes into India and the Viceroy's house, the way they administered Indian territories. It is called the Act for the Good Government of India. You should know this also. After the revolt of 1857, we have done 1857 revolt in a separate chapter in detail. Please go through that and then watch this video. So now crown rule came into existence. If you remember, first time the crown thing was coming for the first time in Pitt's in the Act. Tried to connect backwards also, okay. And now the Governor of India will be called Viceroy, and the first Viceroy will be Lord Canning. So you should know this. The first Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. The first Governor General of India was William Bentinck. The first Viceroy was Lord Canning. East India Companies abolished. Board of Control and Court of Directors abolished. So two things which were the prime bodies are all abolished. Now we will see what is newly introduced. A new office called Secretary of State for India with complete authority over Indian administration, and it will have a council also with 15 members, Council of India, to assist him. Okay, so the model of administration has changed, and all these bodies were actually in London, not in India. From London they will operate. Secretary of State for India with a 15-member council. So what happened is, in England the setup changed, but in India it was again same way. The Viceroy, the Executive Council with four or five members. It will get increased after each thing. You don't have to remember the numbers exactly, but an Executive Council. And we saw in the last Act 1853 also a Legislative Council also came. Okay, Indian Legislative Council. So this is how up to 1858 the administrative setup proceeded. Now we'll see what happens after this. Indian Council Acts 1861 and 1892 we'll do together. So you know the timeline. Lord Canning, Indians to be part of administration, because after 1858 they decided to give good governance. So they thought like Indians should come in, and the Viceroy can nominate 3 Indians to the Legislative Council. The Executive Council still had only Britishers, but in Indian Legislative Council 3 Indians, but that too only to the princely class or the rich class. The Raja of Banaras, Maharaja of Patiala and Sir Dinkar Rao. These 3 got nominated into the Legislative Council. Bombay and Madras gets back its legislative powers. Now Bombay and Madras is also allowed to make laws. It was taken away, if you remember. Previous act it was taken away, but now it is coming back. And they have internal autonomy, so they can make rules within their province. Obviously Bengal or the Viceroy can make veto over it, but they got back their legislative powers. And again new legislative councils was formed for Bengal, NWFP and Punjab. Okay, not only Bengal, Bombay, Madras, but other places like NWFP and Punjab. Viceroy empowered more, because now he can issue ordinances. The concept of ordinances started in 1861. You should remember, under Canning, during the emergency. Okay, during emergency they can issue ordinances. Now we have the ordinance system. President can pass an ordinance. So that is the same thing which started under Viceroy in 1861 Council Act. They gave recognition to the portfolio system. The member in charge of department can give final orders. Now also we have different ministries, right? We have for finance, home affairs, external affairs, and they will be in charge of their department. So that portfolio system started in 1861. So you should remember 1861 for 2-3 important things. One is Indians' entry into Legislative Council. Then Bombay and Madras gets back its powers. Then ordinance, and then portfolio system. So you should connect, because prelims can pick up these kind of statements. Now Indian Council Act 1892, and Lord Lansdowne, he is the one who is the Viceroy at that time. More nominations to Legislative Council. So this happens now, going forward every act it will happen. They'll keep on increasing the numbers. And a form of indirect election for the first time introduced, but the election word was not used. Okay. Legislative Council could discuss budget but not vote. Legislative Council could ask questions but not supplementary questions. So see, they are giving small rights, because Indians are there now in the Legislative Council. They are telling you can discuss budget but you cannot vote on the budget. So just part in discussion, and they can ask question, but no counter questions or supplementary questions. So this came in 1892. Now we'll see the next important one, 1909, Morley Minto. We have seen it already when we done the timeline 1909, I think in chapter 8 or 9. And Morley Minto, Morley will be the Secretary of State and Minto will be the Viceroy. And this Minto is different from the Minto who was there in 1813 Act. Okay. More members to Legislative Council, the same thing, and more empowered. Could vote on some items on budget. So see, last time it was only discussion. Now we can vote on some items on budget and could ask supplementary questions. So small improvement. Satyendra Sinha, first Indian to enter Executive Council. So the first time in Executive Council under the Viceroy, one person is gaining entry. Okay, Satyendra Sinha. And another thing, there is another name in the textbook, Satchidananda Sinha, which you will learn later. Don't confuse between the two, because this is the first Indian to enter Executive Council. Satchidananda is the one who entered into civil services, the first Indian to get or clear the civil service exam. Okay, so that is Satchidananda Sinha, that will come later. Separate electorates for Muslims. So the act legalized communalism. If you remember 1909, by this time Muslim League was formed in 1907. So separate electorates was demanded and it was finally granted. We have done everything in detail. Go back to those videos if you don't remember. Lord Minto was called the father of communal electorate. This is also a question which can be asked, because after some time we learn father of decentralization in India. That will be Lord Ripon, that we will see. Also separate representation for Presidency Corporation, Zamindar, University. So more and more stakeholders are coming into the Legislative Council. Executive Council have only one Indian, but Legislative Council is getting more and more Indians. This is about the Morley Minto reforms. Now we will see the Government of India Act, and the most important being Government of India Act 1919, Montagu Chelmsford reforms. You should remember 1917 Montagu had given a statement that they will bring in good reforms in India for the good governance of India, that is actually self-governance of India, so more Indians can come in. So we have to know Montagu statement, which we have done in previous chapter. Please see that. First time will work for responsible governance in India. Now we will see little provisions about it. Central and provincial budgets made separate. So that means now the budget has gone to the local level also. Not only central budget, there will be provincial budget, separate budget for provinces. And central and provincial subjects demarcated. Can make laws separately, but overall unitary. So the overall structure was unitary only. That means center is strong. Okay, but province got little more autonomy and the subjects and budget was demarcated. Provincial subjects into two parts. This is the first time diarchy system. This is also often asked. Diarchy system was introduced in which act? 1919 Act. Okay, it was like they divided the subjects first between center and province. Then within the province itself, they divided into two categories. One is transferred, one is reserved. Transferred means it will be the governor or the viceroy, and legislative, they will discuss and make the decisions. Reserved means only the governor and the executive council. So the legislative council, which is a huge one with lot of Indians, they have no say in the reserved subjects, okay, in the provinces. So remember, central and province is separated. Within province, again separation, transferred, reserved. Bicameralism was introduced for the first time. So these kind of keywords is what UPSC ask usually in all the prelims. Indian Legislative Council have two houses now. Like we have now the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. They divided this for the first time in 1919 Act. Direct elections came up. So if you see, elections first was mentioned in I think 1892. It was not mentioned, but indirect elections happened. By 1909, elections again increased. Now direct elections with limited franchisee based on tax, education, property. So there is no full franchisee, but limited people with all these perks can come into direct election. Now see, Executive Council, other than Satyendra Sinha, two more people can come. So 3 out of 6 is Indians, but cannot be Commander-in-Chief. So there is a post called Commander-in-Chief under the Viceroy. That cannot be Indian, but other 5 positions out of that, 3 can be Indians. Separate electorates now for 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. So you see, if you know one act, to know about the next act, you just have to tweak it a little bit, because that is what Britishers also did. They simply modified small provisions in each act and told like we are introducing reforms for India. So if you see, again little more thing. Last time it was for Muslims, this time it's for 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. New post called High Commissioner for India in London. So this is the first time High Commissioner post was introduced. That is for India, a person will be there in London, the High Commissioner. And he will share similar duties that of Secretary of State. Okay, so this Secretary of State was introduced in 1858 Act, and this is 1919 Act. And Central Public Service Commission, the first body for recruiting civil servants. Okay, we'll see again all these things when we do civil servants in the later chapter, but this act you should know, 1919 Act. It provided for setting up of statutory committee after 10 years, which we have already seen in the last chapter, that is the Simon Commission. Indian Statutory Commission was popularly called the Simon Commission, and if you see the time, 1919 they told after 10 years this committee will come to review this reform. So ideally in 1929 this body should come, but seeing lot of problems in India, if you remember 1927-28 and all, the time when Nehru report came, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose and all the youth leaders were rising, all this was happening, and Montagu-Chelmsford reforms had to be reviewed 2 years prior, so it was preponed to 1927, and that is when Simon Commission comes. We have done in detail. You can watch chapter 9 in Spectrum series on our channel. But I'll see, we'll tell few important things to connect, to kind of maintain the continuity of this particular slide. We'll see few important recommendations of Simon's Commission. They told continue the separate electorates. They told abolish the diarchy, which we saw, the transferred and reserved, and form a federal government. Have roundtable conferences to discuss on the recommendations. Then white paper on constitutional reforms after RTC. So this RTCs and all we have done in very much detail in the chapter 9 and chapter 10. And after so you should know the roundtable conference was for to discuss the Simon Commission. Simon Commission was for to review the 1919 Act. And then the end result was a white paper on constitutional reforms, that is the output of RTC, which will have all the final recommendations. This are all covered. Now we'll see the most important one, Government of India Act 1935. And this Viceroy, most people will get confused, it will be Lord Willingdon, because at this time we did not learn the Viceroys in order. So you should know as per Act, so that you can connect it later for any historical event. So Government of India Act 1935, the Viceroy was Lord Willingdon. Now this is the time when Federation came up for the first time, that is federal setup, you know, right, the center state kind of thing, that is federal setup came for the first time with provinces and princely states under the center. Now everything is becoming more and more formal. Okay, but problem is few of the things, if you see 2-3 points which you are going to see as first 3 points, these things were actually only in paper, it did not happen in real. So if you see federation with provinces and princely state under the center, but never came into being, it did not happen. Okay, what they wanted was they wanted to divide the subjects, federal, provincial and concurrent list of subjects with residue powers with the Viceroy. If you see in present India government, how is it? It is a union list, state list and concurrent list. This is the same thing, federal, provincial, concurrent. And residue powers today it's with the center, same way that time it was with the Viceroy, so that is still retained. Now provinces to have full autonomy, governed by governor and ministers responsible to provinces. This came into effect in 1937, but again see it is discontinued in 1939. But abolished, diarchy was abolished, but this concept of giving full autonomy to provinces and deciding things were again abolished. If you remember 1937-39, this is the time when Congress got into the ministries, and by 1939 during World War II they all resigned. We have done in detail the 28-month rule of Congress rulers, Congress ministers, and why they resigned during World War. All these things we have done. Now next is diarchy at center. That is the diarchy was abolished in the province. They wanted to do in the center, that is the transfer and reserve, but it was introduced, but again never came into effect. So 3 points we saw, all 3 never came into being. It was only in paper, but it is indeed a point which you have to write an answer for Government of India Act 1935. Now see next one, bicameralism at 6 provinces. So Bengal, Bombay, Madras. Other than that, Bihar, Assam and UP. The bicameralism came in. That is, even now we have, right, only I think 7 states in India out of the 29 states. 7 states in India even now have 2 houses. The Vidhan Sabha and the Vidhan Parishad. We have 2 houses. And which are the 7 states? It will be the same thing which we see here now. Not almost same. We will anyway do it in the CTS series, Confusing Topic Simplified, where we will give you a trick. It is actually Batuk MJ, BATUK MJ. And the full form will be Bihar, Andhra, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, MJ, Maharashtra and Jammu and Kashmir. That is the 7 states which has both the houses. All the other states has only the assembly, no council. They have only legislative assembly and no council. So this bicameralism concept for the provinces started in around this time, 1919 and 1935. Now again separate electorate. So you see, you just need to know the pointers and you can simply increase few things in each of the act. Now this time it's for women, labor class, depressed class. But if you remember, depressed class thing was called the communal award, and that will be later done away because Mahatma Gandhi goes into fasting at Pune Yerwada jail, and Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi have a conflict. Finally they'll sign the Pune Pact, and separate electorates was not given for depressed class. Instead they'll give reservations within the main Hindu population. Now the Council of India Act 1858 abolished, and instead, this is actually, if you remember the Council of India, what was Council of India? It was the 15-member committee or council to assist the Secretary of State as per 1858 Act. That body, it was actually abolished, and instead advisors were appointed to the Secretary of State. So to Secretary of State, now that 15-member council does not exist. Instead some advisors were appointed. Now next is again franchisee. Franchisee was extended. Last time if you remember, it was for only few people with tax, property and that kind of things. Now 10% of populations will get voting rights. Now we'll see important bodies set up. Reserve Bank of India. If you know the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, you can connect it with this particular act because year is 1934. So it was established for the first time during this time. Then last time you remember Central Public Service Commission, and now this time Federal Public Service Commission, Provincial Public Service Commission and Joint Public Service Commission. These are all set up, and a federal court, which I told, if you remember, 1774 Supreme Court was set up, but later it loses its relevance, and now federal court is set up in 1937. This is the Government of India Act 1935, which is often asked even in mains as a separate question. So you should know all these provisions in detail. Now the last important act, that is India Independence Act 1947. This is a book related to the partition of India where Mountbatten comes in. So I've told you even the viceroy names of every act. Okay, you should remember it if a match the following question comes. So why was this act implemented? To implement the Mountbatten plan immediately. If you remember, June 3, they came up with the Mountbatten plan, that is 1947, and within the next 43 days India got independence. So to make it act fast only, this Independence Act was established. So it was telling like end the British rule and declare India as a sovereign nation. India partitioned into 2 dominions. It's all pointers which you will know, so I will read it quickly. Can secede from Commonwealth of Nations. So India and Pakistan Dominion are part of Commonwealth, but they can later secede. The dominions can frame constitution and repeal all British laws, including this act. So they can repeal all the other act, including this act, but they are not going to anyway repeal this act because this act is the one which gives them independence. New laws can be made by constituent assemblies till the constitution was adopted. So if you remember, 1947 we got independent, but only 1949 November 26th our constitution will be ready. So till then new laws can be made, small laws for working of the Indian government for 2 years. Abolished Secretary of State, gave in charge to Secretary of State for Commonwealth. So see, all the old bodies are going away. All supremacy and treaties with princely states and tribals ended. So all the treaties ended with whichever Britishers have signed in India. Everything is over. Indian princely state could join any dominion. Okay, this is actually, we'll see when we see Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel uniting the Indian states, because Hyderabad wanted to go to Pakistan, not India. Not because the people wanted, but certain elite Muslim leaders wanted. So that is a separate thing, we'll see. Government of India 1935 could be used in original or modified form, and India has done exactly that. We will learn later when we do polity that the Indian constitution has borrowed a lot of things from a lot of countries, and also the majority of the things are taken from the Government of India Act 1935. If you remember last slide, we saw even the 7th schedule, that is union list, state list, concurrent list concept was taken from Government of India Act 1935. No veto power to British monarch, but the Governor General had this power. So if you know, Mountbatten was the last Governor General or the last Viceroy of India, and after that, immediately after independence, the next one will be C. Rajagopalachari, who will be the first Governor General of Free India. That is also a potential question you should remember. C. Rajagopalachari is very important because we have seen him during the CR formula, we have seen him during the, I think, salt satyagraha in the south, and he was there also, I think, in the formation of Swatantra Party. So there are many things related to C. Rajagopalachari. Governor General made nominal head and work on advice of ministers. So like we have the president now, it is a nominal head, not the executive or real head. title of Emperor of India dropped from the royal title. So England actually had lot of royal titles under their system, but the title of Emperor of India was totally dropped. There will be no Emperor of India. All civil servants appointed before August 15 would continue to get all their benefits. So these are certain names, just for a revision sake I am telling. Mountbatten you should be thorough with. C. Rajagopalachari, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, because he's the Prime Minister President for Independent India, first one. Constitution, drafting of constitution, the preamble, the polity, this is all polity angle, most of polity angle, okay, that we'll see when we do polity. I'm just referring here so that you should connect history's last part and polity's first part. That is how you learn for civil services. It's not like you learn this thing and leave. Every subject is interrelated. That is why they've put different papers for to check your information. Now we have seen all the acts in detail. I'm sure you can understand everything and you can compare everything, even for prelims or for mains. Now we'll see certain questions which we have picked up from obviously our Vysh IAS PDFs. Which of the following were part of Government India Act 1919? Subjects were listed under central and provincial list. Communal representation for Europeans, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians. Bicameralism was introduced. Diarchy was introduced. So you have to see whether all these things were first time introduced during the Government of India Act 1919. If you have done this slide well, I am sure you can answer this question. Please answer in the comment section, because I see only one or two answering, or some people are asking me the answers directly in our Facebook page. I don't know why people are not commenting the answers, because it's time now that you start practicing MCQs. This is something which I did not mention in the slide. The Chamber of Princes, an advisory and consultative body, was formed by the recommendations of, you have to tell me which one. Chamber of Princes. Which act provided for the formation of Public Service Commission in India? We have seen this. The first one, Central Public Service Commission. When was it formed? You have to mention that. Okay. I think one more question is there. Which act can be said to be the beginning of parliamentary system in India? See, so UPSC is not picking up the statements directly. They are confusing you by forming these kind of things. So mostly you will be thinking it will be 1909 or 1919, but I will tell you that is not the answer, because parliamentary system means giving a chance to discuss the budget and all those things. So actually a parliamentary form will be there where people come into assemblies and discuss. Okay. So you have to tell me which one is it 1861 or is it 1892? We have done it, so please try to answer. And please try to buy the MCQs from us. Most of them who have bought it have told excellent reviews, because these are, I'm showing you sample questions every day. In every video we will be giving you 3 or 4 which is picked up from those separate PDFs which we have for separate subjects. Also, if you are following our Facebook page, which is Vysh IAS, the link is given here. Every day 4 or 5 questions we are posting from different subjects: polity, geography, environment, India yearbook, everywhere. Even the economic survey we have PDF. So try to buy these MCQs and start practicing now itself, else your preparation will be pending compared to serious other aspirants. Okay, so chapter 11 is done. Chapter 12 we have already done with chapter 7. You should see the video. Now next will be chapter 13 and 14. I'll take it in one single video because it's smaller chapters. So please wait till we come up with that video. Till then, thank you and have a nice day.